Hold on here. I still got some stuff to close. Okay. I'm not doing the bot self thing. I know it was actually a pretty popular deal I had going on because at one point I had like 11 viewers during that. But I feel like playing the game right now, and to do that, I would have to load. I would have to properly do it, and there might be other opinions on how to do it, but to properly switch databases, what I like to do is I like to wipe the one I have before I load the other one, and then I also have to make sure that the bot settings are the same, otherwise things are going to get kind of fucked up. So it wasn't something that I was super committed to. I didn't make a separate bot settings config for that. So shame on me, I guess. I don't know, but I just enjoy playing the fucking game. Also, news, I played the alpha version of WoW earlier this morning, and it was dog shit. Yeah. I thought about trying to play the release version of Vanilla WoW, like 1.1.0 or something like that. And I decided against it strictly because it's only so different from the version, the vanilla version that I play, and it doesn't have bots. And I figure if I'm going to try to play a WoW that doesn't have bots, it's going to be Legion, because that game's already made with the idea of you not socializing. So, server's still starting. Speaking of which, though, I need to switch my graphics card profile because I don't want to be overclocked for no good reason. Oh, wonderful. Okay. Am I 53? I don't remember. Okay, good. I am. And I remember now, I took this motherfucker's quest, did I not? Hold on, where's fucking... Yeah, I gotta go. I don't have to do this to get where I'm going, but it's good XP. These guys are casters too, so they're gonna be a pain in the ass for sure. I don't have any nature resistance though. All I can do is sit here and smack them. Oh, he was out of mana. Okay. So Holy Shield's actually good here. This takes forever. I almost don't want to do it. What? It's probably good XP. Hold on, I still have my my metrics on here. My overlay rather. Let me turn that off. Hopefully I don't come back dead. Are you gonna block any of this shit? Like, what are you doing? Oh, that's different. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and get feathers from these guys, and I'm gonna go turn that in. I'm actually curious to see what the XP difference is in Burning Crusade compared to the vanilla version. And then I will turn this one in, and then I will proceed to Winter Spring to turn the other one in. I might be able to fight him. It's a very, very slim chance. Oh, he stealthed that little bitch. If I had mana, I would have killed him. Let's be real. But like, if you're a rogue, you literally can't kill a proc paladin. And your best ability against a proc paladin as a rogue is to just stealth and walk away. That's your best ability. There's just nothing you can do. He could have been level 60, and I probably could have 1v1'd him. Because my holy damage, it doesn't give a shit what the level difference is. If you hit me and I block, that's just all there is to it. I would like to get a better shield though. This is pretty good. It is a really good shield. Well, time to start all over again because motherfuckers. Can I purify that? That's gay. Go ahead, cast your bullshit, see if I care. If Paladins had nature resistance aura, they'd be so broken if you think about it. Like, you would just have 20 Paladins in your AQ40 raid. I know it doesn't stack, but like, one of them dies, you can just switch. Pop and switch as the homos like to do. When the glory holes at the truck stops. Ooh. Speaking of glory hole, I'm getting 2 for 1. So they all curse, this I know now. But these ones are all melee, so it should even out. It does so little damage. I've seen more damage done from somebody botching a parallel part than the fucking Avenger Shield does in this game. I can lose the debuff and they're just gonna put it back on. That curse is just ass. I hate it. I'd rather fight those flame dwarves and burning steps than have to deal with this curse. And that's saying something. Uh-oh. I bet you didn't know I was playing this game with a controller the whole time. Yeah, now you know. I could go for some, I need some background noise or something, because there's nobody in my channel right now. Not that I'm not entertaining, because obviously I am. I mean, like, you know, duh. But, like, Mad Season, what do you got for me? He goes into so much detail in his Time Warp series, I'm almost not even a fan of it.
As a reward, and in raiding in World of Warcraft. The main course for any MMO is raiding. Large-scale groups of people working together.
I probably
to
listened to like half of this and then I stopped
reward.
listening to it, so bear with me.
In the World of Warcraft, it's changed quite a bit ever since its release.
But you know, it's my channel. I don't have to make excuses. You're the one here, so fuck you.
About the size of the raids, why
trying to backseat drive me.
The different difficulties,
you're not my mother.
Some of the raids themselves, and I'll sprinkle in some of my own personal experiences where appropriate. But hopefully keep the video more about the raids. Just have fun reminiscing like we always do, and maybe give people who didn't get a chance to play back then a little insight on how much things have changed. I'll be doing this mainly from memory. I'll be
my mace skill,
but if I get anything wrong, give me a little slack. It's been 13 years after all.
Not too bad.
And feel free to post any corrections, of course, if you have any. And since this subject is quite huge, I think the best way to do it is maybe split it up into multiple parts. In this episode, we'll cover vanilla raiding, and we'll go over the other expansions in future episodes. So, this way we're thorough, but the video also isn't an hour long. Okay, so rewind to November 2004. A new game called the World of Warcraft is lighting the world of MMOs on fire. You take a couple of months to journey from level 1 to level 60, do some 5-man dungeons with friends, and once you're ready, raiding. There were actually 4 raids at the release of World of Warcraft, at least that I know of. We of course have the well-known ones such as Onyxia's Lair and Molten Core, but we also had the Blackrock Spire and Scholomance. These were initially raids at release. In the case of Scholomance, the dungeon initially was very tough and pretty much required 10 people. It was only after a patch that the mobs were weakened and the size was capped to 5 people. And in the case of the Blackrock Spire, this was a 15-man raid and was unofficially split up by the players into UBRS and LBRS.
Come on, hit me with another spell.
And lower Blackrock Spire.
I'm waiting for it.
To go to upper, you went left, and to go to lower, you went right. You could go through either side with 15 people, but it was only really required for the upper. Lower was far easier, and was runnable by 5 people. And in patch 1.1, similar to Scholomance, the raid was nerfed and the player limit was lowered, this time to 10. So, the first raiding experience for a lot of guilds wasn't Onyxia's Lair or the Molten Core like many people believe. It was actually the Blackrock Spire and pre-nerf Scholomance. In terms of loot though, those first 2 were the places to be. These raids were 40-man, which was interesting in itself. 40 people is quite a huge number, and it had a lot of subtle effects on the raiding scene that you might not think about. Just offhandedly here, one is the room size for all of the boss fights. Every room was
Yeah.
massive because he had to give 40 people enough room to spread out.
Uh-huh.
Comparing the caverns of the Molten Core or the giant rooms of AQ40 to some of the rooms in Nighthold or Antorus, they were much, much bigger. And another side effect was dead weight. With 40 people, you had a lot more wiggle room than you do today, and you could have people who didn't really know what's going on. You know, people who think that fire has some healing properties. This was appropriate though because at the time, everyone was new of course. For the lack of a better term, we all kind of sucked compared to now with our years of experience and seeing similar mechanics repeated. These days, we can say that, oh, this fight has a tank swap, or we have to spread out for this one, whereas back then, it was new, and it took some trial and error to figure out why everyone was dying. World of Warcraft was a lot of people's first MMO, so a lot of stuff you think that is self-explanatory really wasn't back then. And combine that with the fact that sites like YouTube weren't a thing yet, or they were in their infancy, you didn't have immediate access to full 720p video walkthroughs going over every single mechanic. So, because of all of this, the fights were really tuned for around 30 people playing really well, rather than 40, and you could have maybe those extra 10 as dead weight basically. Now, this was only really true for these first two raids. Things of course started getting more complicated with the Blackwing Lair, AQ40, and Naxxramas, and all 40 people had to be on top of their game to stand a chance to clear them. Another thing the 40 player limit complicated was loot. Each boss only gave you a few pieces of loot, so it was tough splitting that between 40 people. There wasn't personal loot back then. Some guilds just went with the roll for the main spec method, which was chaotic, and others went for the free-for-all / roll command method, which was even more chaotic because things like this would happen.
I want that ring. I do.
Alright. Who else wants it other than rogues? Because all the rogues can't roll on it. Khan, what are you doing?
What the fuck? Oh my god! What the fuck?
And other guilds who wanted to have some sort of order went with the DKP system, which stands for Dragon Killing Points. This was adopted from the EverQuest MMO, and basically it's a system that gave you points for participating in raids, maybe supplying the guild with raid consumables or whatnot. Then you bid against your fellow raid members for items, and whoever has the most points wins. Each item has a cost tied to it, and that cost is deducted from the winner's point total. This was the preferred method for most guilds because it was impartial,
There we go.
not based on luck, and it awarded those who supported the guild the most by showing up to the most raids and helping other members out. As far as I know, this has now been phased out with the introduction
Awesome, a
of
den
personal
launcher.
loot,
Just
but
what I
it's an
wanted.
interesting system to look back to. Definitely a headache for guild masters though, because they would have to screenshot who's in the raid, who gets what item, how much that item costs, and put it all in a spreadsheet and sort out discrepancies or mistakes, and after all of that, put it up on their guild website so people can actually keep track of their points. So, this 40-man size had a lot of different effects on the raiding scene that you probably wouldn't think about, and honestly, I'm probably forgetting some. By all means, if you have any, share them in the comments. But another side effect of this larger size is the composition of the raids. Today, as far as I know, fights require just 2 tanks, maybe 3 or 4 healers, and the rest DPS.
Why is my reckoning
Of
not
course, changing
bracking?
depending on how many people
I
you
just
have.
realized that.
But during vanilla specifically, you could have fights that required several highly geared tanks, dedicated healers for each of those tanks, raid healers, and then the rest as DPS. Tanks have always been in short order, so this would put a lot of stress on guilds to keep a healthy roster of them. And as a result, you would have guilds recruiting tanks from other guilds, which would of course cause a lot of drama.
Maybe it's lag.
Something to keep in mind is that we couldn't freely switch specs back then, so you were a tank or you weren't, plain and simple. And to top all of it off, for the most part in vanilla, the only tanks were warriors, which made it even harder. As far as I can remember, we didn't have feral tanks or paladin tanks back then really. So, a lot of the difficulty at times wasn't about the fights, but just getting the right people together so you have the right composition. The balance was all over the place. Rogues by far were the best DPS, warriors the best tanks as I said, priests the best healers, and everyone else had these little niche roles that they would fill. Warlocks, while they weren't very good at damage, were able to banish elementals and demons, so you'd want them in the raid just for that, along with summons and soulstones. Druids for the most part were relegated to healing. They weren't as good as priests, but they had the Innervate spell and battle reses, which made them useful still. Like I said, the balance was all over the place, and you would have specs that were flat out useless in the raiding scene, such as the Balanced Druid, the Fire Mage in the Molten Core due to its resistances. Shadow Priests, I believe, weren't too good because they had mana issues and so on. It's one of the side effects, not really due to the size of the raid, but just with the game being new in general and the developers still getting into their stride. Balance overall was vastly improved in the Burning Crusade expansion, but that's a subject for the next video. So, that's a bit about some of the background stuff. Let's talk about the actual raids for a bit.
I don't mind vanilla balance, but I'm a fire mage, so what the fuck do I know, you know? I've never been talking about anything.
But, as mentioned before, our first two big 40-man raids were the Onyxia's Lair and the Molten Core.
I screwed up my spell rotation. This music is always so damn loud. Like, just get on with it.
Holding Onyxia herself. To zone in, as we went over in a previous episode, there was a very extensive...
I apologize. It's not my fault, it's Matt's season. He's a fucking retard. He doesn't listen to his own videos.
It was pretty long and tough.
He just
but
makes
at the
them,
end, you got an item called the Drakefire Amulet,
publishes them,
which allowed
doesn't
you to
look
zone
back.
in. All 40 players had to go through this attunement process, so even zoning in was quite the challenge. But, to be honest, it was fun for me. I'm a big fan of having endgame stuff to do other than just gearing, so I'm actually quite fond of the attuning in a lot of ways. Although I think it can go a bit overboard sometimes, as we'll discuss in part 2. So, with 39 friends and fellow raiders at your side, you charged the broodmother of the Black Dragonflight, and for most people, this was their first taste of a fight that actually had phases. Up until this point, the majority of dungeon bosses were basically tank and spank. You had some outliers, but for the most part, you tank the boss, heal the tank, and hit it very hard. So, you can just imagine the awe and panic when Onyxia took to the sky and started incinerating everyone from above. With enough guts though, you brought her back down to the ground and finished her off. Your first raid boss killed in your first 40-man raid. And the world first was on the 30th of January of 2005 by the Guild Ruined on the Proudmoore US server. It was quite the moment for a lot of people.
I'm taking them all on.
To some guilds and harder to others, and it was
Here
the
we
birth
go.
of the Onyxia wipe animation, which is one of the more famous or infamous moments in the game's history.
Whelps! Left side! Even side! Many whelps! Now handle it!
And now that she's dead, the only thing left is to split up her loot between 40 people. And what's this? She drops purples? That's another thing I should mention here. At this point, the highest quality gear that most people had were blue items. Some dungeon bosses dropped the odd purple here and there, but they were very, very rare to see. Nowadays, you can get a full set of purples in one day, but back then, they were pretty tough to get. And as you would imagine, there was no shortage of drama over them, even if your guild was using the orderly DKP system.
Why don't you have more than 3,500 bots,
Even if
Sep?
they weren't good. Remember, this was early
You
from
could
the
have
beginning.
like
Back before we
6,000.
knew anything about eye levels, stat weights, and so on. As long as they were purple, they must be good, we thought. But then, of course, we eventually smartened up and started looking
Oh
at
my
eye levels
goodness.
and stats and such. It's an interesting setup that we've lost over the years. Now, having a full set of purple is common, and now it's just about the eye level and quality of that purple is what matters.
You don't understand.
Even legendaries are something that you're guaranteed to
The bot
eventually get,
director
and because
has
your class is balanced around
priority spawning, and
Anyways, back on subject here. The next
areas around you have a slightly higher chance of spawning bots than other areas.
Have just one boss, but 10 bosses,
And it's constantly teleporting the bots around.
This was the main event for
So,
raiding at the time. Several different challenges to overcome.
It's a no-brainer.
And it set the tone for
if you have 3,500 bots, it's gonna feel like 7,000.
A little fun fact for you is that it almost didn't even make it to the game. Blizzard was
It's part of the
and
optimization.
they actually threw it together in 1 week before the release.
So if
The
you
game
have 6,000, it's
designer,
gonna feel like
Jeff Kaplan, did the
12,000.
placement, Scott Mercer did the boss fights, Alex Afrasiabi made the attunement quest, and Bob Fitch did all of the loot. Speaking of which, another fun fact is that it actually dropped both Tier 1 and Tier 2 sets. Tier 2 was later moved to the Blackwing Lair raid, which was added later. It was a mess, but it worked, and it was a great start for the raiding scene in World of Warcraft. As I said, Ragnaros was the final boss, killed by the guild Ascent on the US Medivh server on the 25th of April of 2005. Wait a second, US guilds getting world firsts? Now that's something we haven't seen in a while, huh? The fight against Ragnaros required some resist gear, which was also a big thing in vanilla raiding. Basically, to sum it up, some bosses required certain resistances, or they were just impossible. Ragnaros needed fire, Huhuran and AQ40 needed nature, Saffron and Exramus needed frost, and so on. Gear that had these resistances were pretty hard to track down, and you had to have it specially crafted for you, or run some random dungeon for a certain piece. These resistance fights, along with the resistance stats, are no longer in the game, but they were a big part of raiding back then. And going back to the Molten Core for a second, this raid was also the source of the first legendaries in the game. We have the Talisman of the Binding Shard, which was only looted once before it was patched out, the Thunder Fury Sword, and the Hand of Ragnaros Mace. If epics were still a big deal back then, you can only imagine how big these legendaries were. They were tied behind epic quest chains or special objectives, and were quite legendary to say the least.
You know, I'm gonna go ahead and do something for the first time.
Videos for both of these weapons in the
I haven't done this in a while. And I figure I should do it. Because I do have the link. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna stick my dick in my voice chat in general. What is that coming through, by the way? Is that coming through my headset? Yeah. Okay, good. Mic test. Mic check. I'm sure it's just fine. Anyway. Oh shit, hold on. I gotta play that fucking video again. Does my mic have like some weird noise canceling? What? Oh, okay. The fuck? What is this shit? Anyway.
The description if you'd like a more detailed look at them. And after the
I am now on voice chat in my Discord.
Zul'Gurub, AQ40 and AQ20, and lastly Nexramus. I don't want to go over all of these one by one because it's not the point of the video. I just wanted to talk more about
how many more motherfuckers? I need 5 motherfuckers.
The actual raids. But in general, they got better and more refined.
I would have had that camp if it wasn't for that stupid horde and that meddling dog.
Which were amazing experiences themselves, as anyone who played back then would
Or
tell you.
the meddling horde and that stupid
Zul'Gurub
dog, that's
and
what I
the
meant to
Ruins of
say.
Entourage were just 20 men, which sort of paved the way for smaller skill rating in the game. which would be adopted in the Burning Crusade expansion. Encourage and Next Ramus were the hardest challenges, of course.
I don't want the shaman. I don't want anything to do with the shaman.
Hazakostas actually proved that the Cthulhu boss in AQ40 was impossible to beat, assuming that you had the best gear and perfect play.
Who's
from
fighting
all 40
these?
raiders. You just weren't able to put out enough damage to keep up with the spawns, and it was only after a
62?
nerf that guilds started taking him down. So, if that isn't tough, I don't know what is.
Why?
And another important thing to note is that there were no difficulty settings back then. If you couldn't do a raid, you couldn't do it. There was no normal, heroic, mythic, or LFR modes.
Who the fuck are...
Next Ramus, of course, was also very challenging, not just in difficulty, but
Are you
also
Den
in
Watchers?
keeping people
No, you're
interested and
shamans. Like,
inviting
what?
you. Not long after its release, the Burning Crusade expansion was announced, which really killed motivation for a lot of guilds, including mine. It was common knowledge that
I'm gonna
the
do
level
it.
cap would
I'm gonna
increase,
do the same thing I did on my
and the raiders who would
troll.
Get in there would be replaced.
I'm gonna summon
And combined
10
with
level
the extreme
70s,
challenge
and they're
and
just
rapid
gonna mop the
progress,
place up.
Attendance slowly died off, and most guilds called it quits until the next adventure in the Outland. In fact, guilds saw so little of the raid that it would eventually be re-released in Blizzard's second expansion, The Wrath of the Lich King. So, 40-man raiding, DKP, epics being epic, the dawn of raiding in World of Warcraft. This is our first step in a pretty big subject. In the next episodes, we'll talk about the Burning Crusade, how the raids were scaled down to 25, and also Wrath and the introduction of different difficulty modes and so on. I hope you found the video interesting or entertaining. Like it if you
Vanilla Keys, I definitely have not watched this episode, so get off my jock. I have not watched it.
Hey guys, what's up? Mad Season here, back with another video for you. A while ago, I touched on vanilla keying, mainly with the Onyxia chain since it was the biggest one, and in this video, I'd like to go over all of the miscellaneous ones. Why? Well, to have fun reminiscing as always, and maybe even when classic servers come out, people can use this as a guide of sorts, and you can become the key master of your server. Although, this is more aimed just for reminiscing rather than an actual guide, since I'll be leaving out some details for the sake of brevity. Keying in general is a lost tradition in the game ever since the Cataclysm expansion, I want to say. In fact, it used to be so common that Blizzard eventually released the Key Ring, a separate bag that holds just keys. This was needed because there were so many keys to get that it started to wear on the player's inventory space. This was eventually removed during the Cataclysm expansion since nearly all of these keys and attunements were removed and no longer required to open their respective doors. So, in the Onyxia video, I covered a few keys already. The key to Onyxia's lair, the Drakefire amulet, the Shadowforge key which is in the Blackrock Depths, and the Seal of Ascension which was required for the Upper Blackrock Spire. I also briefly covered the Blackwing Lair King process.
I don't
as
even
well
need
as
this
AK-40
quest.
and Next Ramus.
But I'm gonna do
All
it.
of the big ones, so in this video, we'll
How many
cover the
feathers do
more
I have now?
miscellaneous
6?
minor ones.
Only 5.
The first one I want to mention is the Skullomance key. Today, you'll notice a gate at the entrance to Skullomance. Originally, this was locked and it required a key to open. The start of the quest chain that awarded the key was a little different depending on what faction you were. Let's start with the Alliance. To start it, you went to Commander Ashlam Valorfist, who was located in the Chillwind camp in the Western Plaguelands. He gave you a quest called Clear the Way, which required you to
Oh,
kill
my
some
wife's
undead
home.
in the Sorrow
That's
Hill area,
nice.
which was nearby to the east. For the
About time
Interior
she did
Horde,
something.
You talked to the High Executor Darrington, who is located at the Bulwark, also in the Western Plaguelands. He gave you a quest called the Scarlet Diversion, which required you to use a flame in a bottle to burn down a scarlet tent to the east, and place a Scourge banner to
I'll be
free
right
the
back.
undead and shift the Crusade's focus away from the Bulwark.
Let's go see. Why do I still have 4 viewers? Is this thing broken? No? The fuck are you people doing with your life? Go watch something else. Isn't there like a John Tron video or something you guys can go watch? Like, why are you watching my stream? Like, what the fuck?
Work. And from here, the quest lines are pretty much the same, the only difference being the turn-in NPCs. The next quest was called All Along the Watchtowers. In a town called Anderhall to the north, there are 4 watchtowers at each corner of the town. This quest required you to plant a beacon in each of these towers. It was pretty tough, and it was the first group quest in the chain because the town is infested with elite undead, and each tower has a tough guard. So, usually, a group of 5 is required for this one. Now that you've completed these minor tasks, you've proven yourself worthy to actually start working on a key. How can we get past this impenetrable, wooden door? Do we ram it down, set it on fire? Ah, a skeleton key forged in a volcano, of course. You're sent to the camp alchemist, and they tell you that to create the key, you need skeletal fragments. You could get these from any high-level undead, and they were pretty abundant in the Plaguelands.
I like how that dude
Once
just
you got 15
disappeared
of
out of
them,
thin air.
You returned to the alchemist and
Into
you
thin
went
air,
to a
I should
goblin
say.
located in the Gadgets and Hub in Tannerus named Crinkle Goodsteel.
Alright, let's try
He
this
says
again,
that
because I
he'll
need these
pack the
end
fragments
watchers.
into a mold and teach you how to make the key for 15 gold, which was pretty pricey back then. A lot of people started this quest before hitting the max level, and this was usually where they stopped because they just didn't have the extra gold to spend. And for the next part, you also needed 2 thorium bars, so there was a bit of a money investment for this chain. If you paid up, he directed you to take the skeleton key mold and the 2 thorium bars to the top of the Fireplume Ridge in the Ungoro Crater Zone. Hey, didn't I just talk about this place in the last video? Anyways, you go to the lava pool located at the very top of the volcano, and using its heat, you
Again?
get the unfinished skeleton
They just
key.
pop up?
Of course there's more. So, you bring this unfinished key back to the alchemist, and he tells you that to finish it,
Just
you need to
fucking
kill
appear.
an elite undead enemy named Arash the Summoner, located in Anderhall, a nearby undead-infested town. Hey buddy, do you think you could have told me before I started making this key that it would require 15 gold? Going
I
to
go
the top of
AFK
the
for 30
volcano
minutes, I
and
come back
killing
and
the
they're still a
undead lich
horde.
lord? That whole busting down the door strategy is looking better and better. You get the next quest, and head to Anderhall to slay Arash the Summoner. At the time, he was pretty tough. He was in the heart of the city, and surrounded by elite undead, so most people went at him with a full group of 5. If you were successful though, you were awarded with the key to Scholomance. Quite a lot of work for just a simple key. Well, it's no Onyxia's Lair chain at least. Located in the Desolate Zone, you can find the Moradin dungeon. It's a rather large place and is split up by the players into 3 parts: purple, orange, and inner. All 3 are actually one instance and they all connect to each other. The inner was the finale and had the best loot, but to get to it, you had to go through either orange or purple, which was pretty time consuming.
Yeah,
Luckily, though,
it
there was a
was.
shortcut item called the
And I
Separation
like to do the
Cerberus
whole fucking
that
thing when I
teleported
do
you
it, so.
right to inner. Wait a minute, a staff? Now I guess this technically isn't a key, but it serves the same purpose as a key pretty much, so I'll cheat and talk about this one anyways. It's actually much more simple than the skeleton key. Outside of Moradin on the orange side, you could find a Dryad NPC named Kavindra. She has a quest called the Legends of Moradin, which requires you to get the Celebrian Rod and Diamond from the 2 sort of end bosses of both sides, Lord Viletongue on the purple side, and the Elemental Noxian on the orange side. The whole place was a maze, and it was during vanilla when there were no maps, so traversing it was actually pretty challenging if it was your first time there. After killing those 2 bosses though, you had to kill one more called Celebrus the Cursed, who could be found in the Poison Waterfalls at the end of both the purple and orange sides of the dungeon. Once you defeat him, his ghost will spawn, and if you hand him the diamond and the rod, he'll perform a short ritual and give you the scepter. At the bottom of the waterfall behind him lies the inner Moradin, which you can then finish, and now that you have the scepter, you can teleport straight there every time.
This is
To do
retarded.
that, you just went to the entrance of the dungeon, and instead of going left or right, you went through the middle passage until you reached a room with 4 braziers on the floor. If you equipped the scepter here, a portal spawns that both you and your party can then use to go directly to the inner Moradin. A handy shortcut for sure. Our next key is a little unique because it's not for a dungeon, but rather just for the open world, and that's the Alliance only key to the Searing Gorge. In the Lok Modan zone, there lies a long tunnel that leads directly to the high-level Searing Gorge zone. They didn't want low levels going through here, I guess, so they put up a locked gate and a grumpy NPC named Mountaineer Pebblebitty to guard it. So, how did you gain entrance through this tunnel that leads to the Searing Gorge? By killing a mob that's in the Searing Gorge. Well, that's a problem. Luckily for you though, there are multiple entrances to the zone, the other one being in the Westfall zone through the Burning Steps and the Blackrock Mountain, which then leads to the Searing Gorge. Quite the journey to say the least, and this route had no gate. I guess Blizzard trusted human characters more so than dwarves or gnomes. In the Searing Gorge zone, you would find an elite thunder lizard named Margul the Rager. Normally, you have no reason to kill it, but it drops its horn as a quest starter. Mountaineer Pebblebitty's axe is lodged in the horn, and in the process of dislodging it, it shatters into pieces. You bring this horn to the Mountaineer, and she gets upset that you've succeeded where she failed, and claims that the horn that you own is a fake, and that it's from another
You have to
smaller
go to
thunder lizard named
Ironforge.
Stormsnout in the Barrens. She tells you to take the horn to the curator Thorius in the museum in Ironforge.
You didn't see that. You didn't see
Thorius
anything.
not only confirms it's from Margul,
You didn't see
but he
anything.
also puts the horn on display. If you return to the Mountaineer once more, begrudgingly, she'll award you with the key to the Searing Gorge, which unlocks the tunnel. But not all keys are tied to quests. Some are as simple as slaying a single NPC and looting the key off of their body. The Scarlet Monastery dungeon was originally split up into 4 wings, with 2 of those wings having locked doors blocking the way. The unlocked ones were the graveyard, which really didn't serve any super important purpose, and another one called the library, which held the key. At the end of this dungeon was the boss, the Arcanist Doan. He was guarding his lockbox, and if you defeated him, from this chest you could loot the Scarlet Key, which gave you access to the other 2 wings, which were the Armory and the Cathedral. It also gave you access to the Scarlet Bastion, which was located in the human side of Stratholme, so let's talk about this. Stratholme is another dungeon that was split up by the players into different sides. In this case, it's human and undead. In the Eastern Plaguelands, you can freely enter the human side of Stratholme, way up in the northwestern corner of the map. To the east a bit is a back door gate that leads to the undead side, but you need a key to open it, and a similar conundrum to the Searing Gorge, this key can only be found on the undead side of Stratholme. But what some people don't realize is that Stratholme was actually one big instance. Again, it was the players who split it up into 2 sides due to the sheer size of these dungeons. In Cataclysm, for the sake of the players not getting lost, they did put up a gate between the 2 sides, but originally it was just one big place. So, if you're on the quote human side, if you take a right instead of a left and follow that path, you'll end up on the quote undead side.
Had enough?
The NPC you're looking for here is the Magistrate Bartholus, who waits just outside of the gates to Baron Rivendare, the final boss of the dungeon. Well, on the undead side at least. He drops the key to the city, which unlocked the back gate, which led directly to the undead side. Another thing I may as well mention while we're here are the postbox keys. A sort of hidden boss.
I know I got some level 70s here that would like a promotion.
Master Malone. Throughout the instance, you can find these mailboxes, and they originally needed special keys to unlock. Since the keys were removed, today you can just click on them, but originally you had to fight the Stratholme Courier located on the human side, and he dropped a set of keys that could open some of these mailboxes spread throughout the dungeon. Unlocking them spawned a group of mailmen, and if you opened 3, I believe, the hidden postmaster Malone boss would spawn and attack you. He was very rare to see because the
I'll take care of
mailboxes
this.
in general were out of the way and spanned both sides, and because of this, most groups just skipped this boss. If they even knew about him, that is. He dropped some interesting items though, and even a set. It has some resistances, some armor, and even a run speed bonus, which is interesting.
I don't even need this
Like
quest.
I said, he's still in the game.
I just
so
want the
if you want the
XP.
set, you still can get it.
We're doing the quest,
It
and I'm
is
not on
pretty
rested
cool
XP
transmog, I
anymore.
think.
I don't need to kill any. I don't need solo
So,
XP.
There's some more keys for you.
So you know
I do
what?
have a ton more planned, and here's a preview list of all of the ones I have written down. So we got
That's
a lot more
what.
to cover.
That's fucking what.
And if you
Okay.
don't see any listed here, feel free to let me know in the comments. I think keys were an interesting element to the game. It was another little collectible thing, and it actually gave you a lot of value if you had them. Often, you could get spots in a dungeon group if you had the key, even if you were lower level or whatever. The Seal of Ascension for the Upper Blackrock Spire, which I went over in another episode,
It's okay.
was one of the tougher ones
It's
to
okay.
get. I had it on my rogue, and people used to
Don't
actually
worry,
pay
it's
me
not gonna
some
happen
gold
again.
to open the door for them.
I'm not gonna die
since
again.
They were pretty
Don't
rare
worry.
there for a while. So, for those of you who are going to play the classic servers, get the keys because you'll make a lot of friends and maybe even a bit of gold. I'll be sure to visit this again in the future. If you decide to join me, I'll see you then. I hope you found the video interesting or entertaining. Like it if you liked it, and I'll see you in the
The
next
stream's not
episode.
frozen.
Good
I'm just
time.
switching videos. Watch my stream crash now. Watch my whole PC crash now. Because I'm bringing in the reinforcements. His obnoxious music is actually going pretty well with the game right now, so no complaints yet.
Hey guys, what's up? Mad Season here, back with another episode of Time Warp for you. This is a series where we talk about stuff that's been removed from the game for one reason or another, and in this one, I want to continue my talk about raiding in World of Warcraft. It's been a while since the last one, so just as a refresher, the previous episode was about vanilla raiding, and in that one we sort of discussed the early 40-man raiding in World of Warcraft, some of the side effects that it had, the raid difficulty in comparison with player skill, which was pretty poor back then because everyone was new, of course. We also talked about class balance, or the lack of it in vanilla, the DKP system, and so on. So, in this one, I want to move past that a bit into the next expansion of raiding, which is of course the Burning Crusade. Raiding has evolved quite a bit over the years during the game's current 13-year lifespan, and, in my opinion, some of the biggest changes were held in the next two expansions, which are of course the Burning Crusade and Wrath. One step at a time though. In this one, let's just talk about the Burning Crusade. So,
I like how
the
there's not
biggest
going to be
change
any
in this
horde now
review
that I'm here.
was the
Oh
reduction
no,
of the
there's
player
one.
limit
Buck
to
'em up.
25,
Buck 'em
as
up.
opposed to 40-man
Buck 'em
raiding
up.
from vanilla. This was pretty extreme, and as a result, guilds had to do some
Ruin his life.
structuring,
That's right.
many even dying during the transition. All of a sudden, there's just over half of the slots available. There were a lot of cuts, and due to the unforgiving difficulty of the Burning Crusade raids, there was no more room for dead weight. With 40-man raiding, as I mentioned in the previous video, you could maybe get away with having people who didn't really know what was going on, depending on the fight and the raid, of course. For some fights, such as Thaddeus, just one player could wipe the entire raid if they screwed up, and with 40 people in the raid, good luck. But now that the size was almost halved, each player takes a larger percentage.
Hey, Slim, how's it going?
So you couldn't really afford to have any soccer moms in there anymore if you were a hardcore progression guild. Combine that with the better class balance, i.e. you just don't have priests as
I like how my
healers or warriors
level
as
70
healers.
bots are
Guilds
just
saw huge
sporting their
changes to
epic
roster
mounts.
and what classes they could and should bring. And now that the Alliance could make Shamans and the Horde could make Paladins, the makeup changed a lot from vanilla to the Burning Crusade. Some adapted and pushed forward, and others faded away. The survivors had quite the hill to climb.
Alright, that's all I need.
Though, because, like I mentioned,
What's
some of
this,
the BC
Mithril?
raids were
I don't
just
care.
ridiculous
It's not
in terms of
Mithril, I
difficulty,
don't care.
and you had bosses that weren't killed by 99% of the population until they got hit with the nerf bat. And not just that, but even zoning into them was a challenge. You know all about this if you saw episode 7 of this series, but to zone
I
into
did some
most
pretty
of the
good,
raids
man.
in
I
the
don't
Burning
have to work
Crusade,
until 2
you
p.m.
needed to
tomorrow,
do a
and
which was
I'm
one
just
giant
been
ball of
gaming
mess
all day,
itself,
bro.
requiring long quest chains, dungeons, keys, rep
I even had a
farming,
chance
and
to
other
smoke a
raids to
cigar
complete.
earlier. It's
I'd
quite
talk
nice.
about it more if I didn't cover it already, but it was a headache to say the least. Hey, if you need a flowchart to make sense of it, you know that it's pretty complicated. And if I had to guess, I'd say that this was one of the major reasons why the size was reduced to 25 man. Getting just 25 people to puzzle this out to be able to zone in was challenging enough, but 40 people? Forget about it. So, simply put, the attuning for the Burning Crusade was legendary. Some people enjoy the long-term goal other than gearing,
Except I have
others hated it because it
I
made
had one of my
guild
clearance
raids
cigars I
much more
bought for like
difficult
4
because
something.
You'd have to walk new members through the chain, and that as a result
It was
of
okay.
guilds more often poached members.
If it
from
wasn't
guilds
stale, it probably would have been
members
good,
who were
but
already attuned.
I don't know.
There are
It was
upsides
alright.
and downsides to it. And
Can't
everyone
complain,
has
I
their
smoked
own
the whole thing.
preferences. But you know what they say, opinions are like buttholes. Everyone has one. So, they served as a gate to unlocking these raids, which brings me to another important point.
Oh wow, you can
Release of
turn
the
them in
Burning
here
Crusade,
too. That's
did you know
cool.
that there were 6 raids available?
And that
Isn't
actually gives
crazy?
me rep.
6 raids to visit
Awesome.
right from the start of the expansion.
Alright, everybody leave.
Correct
I don't
me if
need
I'm
you
wrong,
anymore.
But I think it was Karazhan, Gruul's Lair, Magtheridon's Lair, the Serpent Shrine Cavern, the Tempest Keep, and Hyjal. Now, I want to say that the
Am I
Hyjal
neutral?
portal was there in the Caverns of Time, but it wasn't active for release. But the official
Oh, I'm
Method
neutral.
World First list says that it was indeed active, so I'll trust that.
You can't
over
turn the
shoddy
feathers into
memory.
that guy in vanilla. You
So,
can only turn
6
them
from
into the
start,
one
including
that's
Hyjal.
like way
But when I
over
say
here, some
available,
or right here. Yeah.
Take it with a big asterisk because they were locked behind attunement. And to attune for most of them, you needed to finish the previous raid, which required gear from the raid before that, and so on. It was an interesting structure though because it was more in the power of the players. Nowadays, of course, we just get one raid at once, released when Blizzard is ready, people clear through it for a few months, and then Blizzard releases another one. This Burning Crusade style was interesting because, technically, these raids were available. You always had that carrot on a stick in front of you saying, hey, just a little more gear and you can do this one, or once you finish this one, you're attuned for the next one. You controlled your progress, not Blizzard, and it was the last expansion where you could say that. So, because of this, and the general difficulty of these raids, many people look at the Burning Crusade as the most hardcore expansion in terms of raiding, even counting vanilla. As I said, we had those 6 raids at release. The world first for the final release raid, Hyjal, which is of course attained by the absolute best of the best worldwide, was obtained 6 months later in June of 2007.
Oh, I don't know if I told you, but I
That's
played
pretty
the alpha
insane.
version of World of
And it took
Warcraft
time to find
earlier
intense
this morning.
difficulty and to tune
And I thought about
and
streaming
double-check
myself
and learn
leveling it,
progress.
but it was just so,
I
like,
won't go in-depth
broken
for each raid here since
that
I wanna
there was
keep the
just no
video more
point.
about the mechanics surrounding raiding,
Because the
rather
thing
than
with
actual raids.
server cores
But
is
I think
that
it
they're
still deserves a
emulated,
phone call, right?
and the one that I played was
So,
emulated
as
just
I
enough
listed
to
earlier, which were
allow you to
Caravan,
play it,
Hills,
but there
and
wasn't
Unfair
really any
Spires,
mobs.
the Serpentine Cavern, Tempest Keep, and we also have Hygel, Black Temple, Zul Aman,
And there
and the
wasn't any
final one,
bots,
which was
so
the Sunwell Plateau. Each raid was unique and wildly different from the
I
rest,
decided that I'm
with
just gonna go
Carousel
ahead and
being
ignore
my
it for
personal
now.
favorite out of the bunch. Stepping foot into each one was a breath of fresh air, and the raiding scene as a whole in the Burning Crusade was just amazing. But touching more on the class balance here, the Burning Crusade made great strides in my opinion. As I said, a much more diverse roster.
Oh yeah,
of
early,
different
like
specs were viable.
version
Some
point
specs were still
or
stinkers, of course.
version
and others were insanely broken, and it's never
0.5.4,
perfect,
I believe
even to
is
this
what it
day.
was.
People point out Destruction Warlocks and Beastmaster Hunters in particular being pretty broken.
I looked to see if there was
think
like
the
a
Beastmaster
release
Hunter
version
had a
of World of
micro
Warcraft
you
that
could
I
bind
could
to your
play,
scroll wheel
but I
and
couldn't
double
find
boom.
one, so...
So, again,
And
it
considering,
wasn't perfect.
even if I found one,
If you're comparing
it wouldn't have
vanilla,
bots,
I'd
so
say
I
that
just
it
gave
was a
up, you know?
definite improvement. Druids became more than just their innervate spell.
There's really no
Paladins
point in
and
playing
Druids
it.
actually got to tank. I think Paladins were the go-to.
I will be
every
playing the
time,
Legion
so
Core
they had their
though. I
spot.
might when I
We
make
had
more
more than 8
tunes.
debuff slots, so now Warlocks were actually
I'm gonna solo level that.
That's something
see how that
I forgot
goes.
to mention in the vanilla episode. When I was talking about DPS class balance, someone in the comments chimed in and said that a big reason why some classes
Oh, completely different, dude. Completely fucking different.
Shadow Priest or Warlocks,
Like,
was because
hold on,
party people
let me pause
could
this
share
video.
big debuff slots back then. Then
I can tell you. Like Ironforge, you might know about the Ironforge glitch in vanilla and maybe Burning Crusade to get the old Ironforge. Well, old Ironforge is what's in like the alpha. So if you go here, number one, the pathway's a lot longer for whatever reason. I don't know, but it was a lot longer. And there's no decorations in the entrance. There's just a pathway. And it doesn't look anything like this. In fact, I would say that it resembles like a more annoying Undercity. Because there's like the outer layer, and there's a bunch of places that you can go in. Like, you know how when you walk in Ironforge for the first time, there's like that big open area, there's the auction house over here, the bank over here, and then there's the two sides that lead to the middle? Well, it doesn't exist in alpha. It's literally just you enter in and you're in like the outer layer. And then you have to kind of go off this way and go in, and then you're in the inner layer. And then you kind of got to go this way and go in, and then you're in the Great Forge, which looks entirely different. I will say that I'm actually quite happy they changed that. This, like, this right here is much better. Oh, where is it? Can I come get the fucking, hold on. You know what I'm talking about. It's way better than alpha. The alpha version, let me tell you something. Alpha is great for nostalgia and great for like, oh, you know, talent trees used to be like this and etc. But really, let me tell you something. The alpha version of this game is shit. It's really bad. Like, pretty much anything that you could be curious about with the alpha version, you can just go watch a YouTube video. Like, there's somebody that goes through like an unfinished winter spring and it's just completely green. There's no snow. It's just like green texture. That's all you need to know. I can't even begin to describe all of it. There is a lot of other areas, like there's the dark portal gates that are all over the place. Um, I didn't check out those because I didn't know how to use GM commands. So I just kind of wandered around and looked at stuff. There was like a fast travel system in the core that I was on. It was weird. Like I could open the map and there was like flags that I could click on and it would teleport me there. I don't know. Alright, where's this douchebag? I came all the way over here just for him. I probably can't do that one yet. Oh no, it says it's yellow. Oh shit, I don't know, man. I don't work until 2 tomorrow, so like it's whenever I get tired, and I'm starting to get tired. I don't know. Probably not actually too much longer now that I think about it because I'm gonna have my wife heat up leftovers. And then I'm gonna eat and then I'm probably gonna go to bed. In which case I'll probably stream tomorrow morning-ish. I think I'll do this quest first though. You know, in fact, I'm gonna call it right now. I'm gonna go ahead and do this quest. And then I'm just gonna be done for the day. My ability to block doesn't seem to be affected by level difference, which is nice. Which means that paladins can actually do quests that are higher level. Mages can't do that. Because their shit just gets resisted unless it's Wrath of the Lich King. Damn, 4:30? Wish I could sleep in that late. I'm just kidding. Like I said, I go in at 2 p.m. tomorrow. But the thing is, like, I go at 2 p.m. to like 6:30 p.m. tomorrow. And then I have to turn around and be in at 3 a.m. the next day, which kind of sucks, but it's better than doing a 3 a.m. to 10 a.m. taking a lunch, and then coming back in at 2:30 to work to 6:30, and then coming back in at 3 a.m. the next day. I'd rather just work one of the other, you know. This dude did not drop anything. Shit. You know what? Fuck it. You there. Come here. Whatever, just keep replying it, I don't care. Alright, man, you have a good night too. I don't know if I'll be on tomorrow evening, but yeah, I might be. I don't know. If I fuck up my sleep schedule that much, I might be on. Even if I should be in bed. Next step in my hope slice. Honestly, with this drop rate, I'm just gonna go ahead and get off myself. Thanks everybody who stopped by. I will be streaming. Wow. Probably tomorrow morning. And in the afternoon, it's either going to be WoW or Football Manager. I don't know which. So, we'll see. Anyway.